right? Yeah.
Yeah. Since the welcome back, everyone, to round 6, the final round of Swiss for the Eternal Tournament Series Weekly 3 for Season 3. We have a really interesting match coming up here. 2 players who are on 4 and 1. TheSkeeJay on Voda Combo and Paladin Mask on Traditional Armory. And I do believe TrueDawn, you have some experience with this Voda Combo deck.
Yeah, for anyone who has watched my stream, we've tried to innovate on this a lot. SkeeJay's build is a little bit closer to like a normal big combo deck that has made some concessions to incorporate Vodakin and Voice of the Speaker. I do actually like it. He's getting the top end potential of that Vodakin combo, drawing a large portion of your deck while still maintaining enough early game and interaction to actually get to that point.
Yeah, it is a very interesting deck. I mean, it still has a Combri base, which is very strong. So there's something to be said for that the deck is, even though you're playing towards more of this like top end threat in Voda Combo, it does still kind of work out like a big Combri style deck.
And we see Paladin on the other side is playing a more traditional build of Armory, although there is one glaring omission from his deck. He is not playing Ikaria.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. There are a decent number of people who recently have been cutting Ikaria or Daisho or Sword from the list. People have been kind of playing around with what their threat pool what they want their top end threat pool to look like. Cutting Ikaria is definitely interesting. I generally like one Ikaria in the deck, but it seems to have been working out pretty well for Paladin Mask today.
I've traditionally advocated for multiple Ikarias. It's kind of like Sphinx's Revelation for anyone familiar with Magic. The first one stabilizes you, the second one wins the game. It's a little glaring to see an Armory list without it, especially in this matchup. He's going to get a bit punished for it because he has to be the beatdown. SkeeJay has a better end game. He can go over the top of Paladin Mask, and Paladin Mask needs to kind of force through his threats early, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that through these big blockers.
Yeah, it is going to be difficult. He does have a harsh rule to clean this up really quick, but obviously we see in SkeeJay's hand that there is plenty of gas to reload with, and Paladin Mask will start running out of answers here quickly.
Yeah, he does have a Vanquish to take out the Sandstorm Titan, but SkeeJay's hand is just so threat dense, and he, like on top of that, he has inevitability. Like he's the one who wins the late game, so even if things slow down a bit, he's just in an excellent spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably just going to get an Iron Thorn down here since it plays well on his curve. Missed a power drop there, but he's not too sad about it. If Paladin Mask picked up another power here as well, this is going to put him down to 1 card after the Vanquish that just cleaned up Marshall.
And this is where it's really going to hurt Paladin Mask not having Ikaria, because in this spot, he could actually just rip Ikaria at some point and like have a clock that would be very hard for SkeeJay to deal with. But since his win conditions are Stone Scarball and Starsteel Daishido, they're just going to trade with a couple creatures. Like this here could like just eat the Desert Marshal. Well, the math doesn't work out. He's probably going to let this hit, take 7, then play the Marshall Iron Thorn and eat it. He can also deploy the Desert Marshal end step here and pressure the Daishido.
Yeah, and I have a feeling we'll see that come down. He's going to try and pressure the Daisho with Desert Marshal, although the Desert Marshal will only take 2 off of it, and if he does elect to put the Iron Thorn down here, will just die. So we might actually see him hold up this Marshall Iron Thorn, since the Daisho will die to this Desert Marshal anyway. You are risking a little bit, though, by doing that.
He does have a Protect, so I actually think it's a pretty safe play, but he does decide to go on the conservative side and to play out the Iron Thorn. Yeah,
and this is actually good for him. Like, he will get to protect the Iron Thorn, but the Iron Thorn is still going down, which is going to leave the players in a top deck situation. SkeeJay only holding a harsh rule and Paladin Mask holding a single card that unfortunately we cannot see. So I'm not entirely sure what it is. Mystic Ascendant, pretty good for SkeeJay, although he probably will pass and wait for a power to play this with.
Yeah, it feels really bad to run out naked. Any weapon just eats it for free. That's like this Rune Hammer. Now he could, if he top decks a power, he could play it and use a 6 toughness creature against a 5 power weapon. He could also just elect to run out one of these 2 creatures and just trade with it.
Yeah, that would have worked out very well for him, but he ends up dropping down the Seraph and gets that traded away, and SkeeJay picking up 2 harsh rules, so he's got plenty of ways to clear the board, but not plenty of ways to clear these weapons, and he's going to need to find a power, and he does, so we will at least see the Mystic Ascendant cycle and get out of this weapon range.
So Paladin does have one more Vanquish and one more Harsh Rule in his deck to deal with this, but outside of that, it's just weapons. And there's the last Vanquish. It's very fortunate for him.
Yeah.
And now TheSkeeJay does have to rip.
Yeah, TrueDawn checking over that and seeing, all those Vanquishes coming down. And those are going to end up taking the game for Paladin Mask, being able to clear out all those threats. And wow, for having such a threat-dense hand, it ends up not mattering. I have to say, I kind of feel like the Martial Ironthorn might have been a misplay there.
Yeah, the way it worked out, they would have had a follow-up Orc Runehammer, and that would have eaten the Ironthorn, and things might have not worked out, but he would have. This play of just passing with the Desert Marshal is so safe because you have the Protect. There really isn't anything that they could have outside of multiple torches that get that out of the way of the Dice Show.
Yeah, exactly. The Dice Show was almost guaranteed to go down there to the Desert Marshal, so maybe a bit of a misstep there, but we will see if the Voda combo deck can get it back. Let's take a look at the TheSkeeJay's sideboard. He's got a single Protect, a pair of Rebukes, 3 Decays, 2 Valkyrie Enforcers, 3 Lumen Defenders, 2 Reality Wardens, a Passage of Beyonds, and a Sword of the Sky King. So definitely going to see Decay come in. That's 100%.
And I guarantee the first card out of the deck is Harsh Rule. I can't imagine keeping any copies of that in. Pallid does have Champions of Glory and Recano Artisans, but your creatures just block those. You don't really care about them. It's so rare you're going to encounter a board that is profitable to Harsh Rule.
Yeah, very true. And something to note that I was curious to see if they would, and he did bring in the Reality Wardens, so he's going to try and go for a bit of that lockdown your Void strategy so that Smuggler Stash can't be used for recursion. I'm not sure how many Smuggler Stash are in Palad's Mask's deck, but I have to imagine at least 2, yeah.
It's interesting. Reality Ward's just a good creature in this matchup. Armory has problems dealing with large creatures because their weapons are generally 1 or 2 too small, especially for a 7/7. They rely heavily on their Harsh Rules and Vanquishes to deal with things like that. So you're generally just bringing in a 7/7 that has the upside of sometimes shutting off Harsh Rule or Sword of Stash rather.
Yep, absolutely correct. And we see a slow-ish start for TheSkeeJay, picking up that extra Seek power going to really help him out here, and he's got to find the ways so he can fix all his power, but only has a single Cumbria Healer to actually have any interaction on the board. So if Paladin can get to an early start, this might not work out very well for TheSkeeJay, but TheSkeeJay is holding a Decay. That's a super important card in this matchup. Helps shut Armory down completely.
Also, Cumbria Healer is a very good card because it just pretty much blocks every weapon unless they get pumped very high. So that buys a lot of time, could cold potentially a large amount of Paladin's hand. And then if anything gets too big, he does have that Decay.
Yeah, that is another important thing you pointed out. Cumbria Healer being a 2/5 matches up very well against all of Paladin Mask's weapons until they take a buff.
And I'm interested to see that TheSkeeJay did leave in 2 of the Harsh Rules. That's certainly interesting. Paladin does have creatures, but like I said before, they're small things like the Recano Artisan and the Throne Wardens have Aegis. They do have a couple Statue Remains and Valkyrie Enforcers, but it's going to be so rare that this profitable Harsh Rule board.
Yeah, I completely agree. You just don't get that much work out of it, truthfully. We do see Paladin Mask passing here, though. It doesn't look like he had a way to answer this Cumbria Healer. So the Cumbria Healer will be punching in and taking a little bit of the armor off that weapon, but not breaking it. So Paladin Mask still has another turn to find maybe a torch or something of that description to go along with it.
Yeah, these 2 Protects are very good here because they're going to insulate TheSkeeJay from things like this Harsh Rule that would be able to clear the Cumbria Healer out of this sort of Akari's way. So this is just going to stick here invalidating this sword for a while. Paladin's going to have to find a bigger weapon. And when he does, the Decay is going to tag it. So TheSkeeJay is in a pretty good spot. And that Mystic Ascendant is the card that's going to help him close it out with linking.
Yeah, I think this is very much in TheSkeeJay's favor now. This Cumbria Healer not likely going anywhere. He's also got the Decay in hand for this next weapon to come down, and he's got a Mystic Ascendant to reload with on his turn, including a Protect to actually protect it with from what will likely be another Harsh Rule out of Paladin Mask or a Vanquish. He can do some cute baiting here where he can actually attempt to vanquish the Mystic Ascendant to force the Protect and then follow up with our Harsh Rule. That would be the best line if he has those 2 cards lying around.
Well, here's step 1. Let's see if he has step 2.
Yeah, let's see how well he played around this Protect here. Let's see if he actually did have a Harsh Rule to follow up. And no, unfortunately, he did not. That was his one answer to the situation. So, yeah, it looks like TheSkeeJay is probably just going to take over this game right now.
Yeah, now he just has so many overpowering threats.
Yeah, Pallid Mask not having the Harsh Rule to follow up there is pretty bad. It's possible he did have it and he's just trying to sandbag it, hoping another threat hits the table. But I have to imagine that if you're playing in Pallid Mask's position, you know you have to Harsh Rule away that Mystic got out of control. So,
and it's actually interesting to see TheSkeeJay like be a little bit conservative here. He knows the coast is clear from a Harsh Rule. He knows Pallid Mask doesn't have it because he 100% would have pulled the trigger last turn after that vanquish. So he would have to rip it off the top. So I'm kind of inclined to employ an additional threat, whether it was Vodafkin or Parliament that turn, or even Seraph. I think that this is a decent amount of pressure, but I think it's just very unlikely you get punished for extending out into the board, especially when Pallid is only running 3 Harsh Rules, unless he cited in the 4th.
Yeah, it is somewhat unlikely, but I don't necessarily disagree with his play. I think it was measured. Like, I think he knows exactly how much pressure he needed. So I kind of liked it. And once he picked up the second Great Parliament, absolutely, I'm all in favor at that point of committing a little more to the board.
Yeah, and we see the game close out there in the end. Yeah, it was just a conservative line. It wasn't like incorrect or anything. It's just a little bit measured, as you said.
Yeah, so that was 1-2-1. TheSkeeJay actually managing to take that second game back against Armory. Decay just such an important sideboard card. Like that card is going to help out so much, and the additional protects to make the matchup even more difficult for the Armory player trying to use those vanquishes and Harsh Rule gain advantage.
Yeah, I actually haven't been a fan of Protect in this deck, mainly because I'm not really a fan of Protect in general in decks that are just playing like a normal fair game. But it actually just did a lot of work there, preventing the things that would get the combo healer out of the way. And even when he moves into the late game, protecting things like the Mystic Ascendant and the Vodafkin, these giant creatures that can normally only be answered by Vanquish or Harsh Rule, having answer for those too, just kind of puts his opponent in the clamps.
Yeah, it really does. Let's check out really quick his Pallid Mask sideboard. He has 4 Ruins, 2 Rebukes, a Vanquish, a Valkyrie Enforcer, 3 Armor Smiths, 3 Hammer Mites, and a Harsh Rule. So the Valkyrie Enforcer very well may have come in. Silence is a very useful effect. Definitely gets cards like Vodafkin, for which the Vodacombo deck takes its name from. Likely, we also saw the extra Vanquish come in, as well as probably the extra Harsh Rule.
Yeah, like we've talked about before, the Armory's big weakness is creatures that are larger than their weapons, and the way they deal with that is things like Vanquish and Harsh Rule. So since TheSkeeJay is presenting a large number of creatures that are bigger than their weapons, he wants as many answers as possible to this thing.
Absolutely. And we see TheSkeeJay with a bit of an awkward hand here to start. The start of the hand looked really good, but now that he hasn't drawn into power, it's not looking super hot. We do see a nice little silence here on the Champion of Glory, but without any power to follow it up, TheSkeeJay going to be a little stuck, and Pallid Mask, I'm assuming, is going to hit his power here and be able to just kind of start to take over this game a little bit. TheSkeeJay is really going to need to hit power.
The sword trading there is good, like not having a weapon that like eats the Marshal is certainly helpful for TheSkeeJay. That power off the top is very helpful. This combo healer should do a decent job of holding on the fort until more power comes TheSkeeJay's way. So he's in an okay spot now. He can deploy the Seraph next turn if he doesn't draw anything. He can deploy the Parliament if he does draw power, or the Sandstorm Titan. So he's very close to being in a spot that he can stabilize. He's not under a lot of pressure either.
Yeah, interesting sideboard inclusion. We see a Rebuke coming out here. And, Rebuke is pretty useful. It can stun up some of the more problematic units that TheSkeeJay can play, as well as silence them. So gives him a little bit of a break. We did see on the 4th turn, though, Pallid Mask actually missed a power drop. So him and TheSkeeJay are back to even for the time being.
TheSkeeJay hitting his is a big deal. TheSkeeJay just is in much more desperate need of power than Pallid. And it was really interesting to see Pallid effectively convert the Rebuke into 1 damage there. I think sideboarding it in is reasonable, but I have to imagine that would have found a better use a little bit later in the game, silencing something like Seraph, Iron Thorn, Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, I have to imagine so as well. He saved himself a little bit of damage from the Combra Healer, but I don't really think that that's the type of game you can afford to be playing. Like you can definitely be a little bit more liberal with your life total in the Armory deck. 2 damage here and 2 damage there is certainly not the end of the world. Let's see if we have double Vanquish to actually take care of the Sandstorm Titan, since the first one met that Protect.
Oh, looks like it's going to live, and those Protects have been doing a lot of work. It's just presenting creatures that can only die to Vanquish and then having answers for the Vanquish has just been an incredibly potent game plan for TheSkeeJay.
Yeah, it has become very difficult for him to deal with, and yeah, as expected, we'll go ahead and see a board swing out of TheSkeeJay, and just a single block there, so not a great indication that Harsh Rules coming down. Probably would have seen another trade to save him some damage.
It's also a little thing, but it's interesting to see TheSkeeJay play the power there. They're a little bit starved on it, and they could just save it for the Iron Thorn next turn. They don't get anything out of playing it. They can't cast an additional spell that turn, and now they can't really do much this turn. It's a little awkward.
Yeah, it is a little bit awkward. I think the thinking was hit a power off the top, get Mystic Ascendant down, power it up. But yeah, in this case, it doesn't work out well for him. And TheSkeeJay now with some interesting options on how he wants to attack, since this Statuary Maiden makes all of these units die. And yeah, that's going to force TheSkeeJay to end up actually passing without swinging. And this gives Pallid Mask time to come back. Like, this is what he needs. He needs a window.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit too conservative from TheSkeeJay. I think you need to attempt to bury your opponent there, given how many threats you have left. If you allow the Armory deck to set up a wall of creatures like Pallid currently has, and then a big enough weapon to mow down several creatures, that's a way Pallid Mask can come back into the game. And I think TheSkeeJay could have helped cut that off a little bit by being more aggressive.
Yeah, we're seeing an interesting decision here. TheSkeeJay really has to figure out, he's got 2 lines of play, essentially. He can go Martial Ironthorn Power to is what he decides he wanted to do. His alternative line of play there was actually to play Mystic Ascendant and power it up to cycle a card, and then hope he hits another power and play Ironthorn into power next turn to give the Mystic Ascendant another 2 triggers.
And here we see that Auric Runehammer come down that's going to be able to eat multiple things because of this wall of creatures.
Yeah, and he'll also have the Stone Cudgel, which he can equip to one of these units if he would like. I kind of want to see this come down. That was my second choice, but my first choice actually was Statuary Maiden. I would have liked to have seen the 4/6 Statuary Maiden that could then block into anything and actually not have to get traded.
Yeah, because that Statuary Maiden is just such a huge roadblock right now for TheSkeeJay. And I think TheSkeeJay's actually a little behind here. He does have an inevitability. He does have things like Vodkin to work towards moving forward. But the outcome of this game is no longer clear.
Yeah, it is starting to get a little confusing as to who is actually going to take the lead here. I would say Pallid Mask looks like he's in a solid position right now. It's going to come down to what he targets with this hammer, and I assume it has to be Martial Ironthorn. And
that throne work is now it's going to get to an additional thing. Although I guess the Parliament tokens could chump attack into this 5/5, so it still effectively got to eat 3 creatures.
Yeah, he definitely probably should push with Parliament here. I think he's going to need to at this point, and it makes me curious as to what Pallid Mask's last card is that he's holding. Wonder if it's like another weapon, like a die show, or if he's been holding a Harsh Rule this whole time, waiting for the that one sweet moment to pull it off. And no, it's actually a Rebuke.
Yeah, that's a very suspect no attack, because essentially you're giving your opponent the choice of what they want to kill there. So if you're in TheSkeeJay's seat, you can double attack with the 2 Parliaments, and you're essentially making it so that Auric Runehammer is killing a Great Parliament token instead of the Mystic Ascendant or the Sandstorm Titan, both of which are more valuable than the Parliament token.
Yeah, very true. The Parliament token absolutely could have been sacrificed there, and TheSkeeJay is trying to build up this really nasty board Ooh Decay. So we might get to see a cute little trick here actually out of TheSkeeJay. We'll probably see this. If we see the 5/5 swing in, we might see like a decay to pop off the weapon.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a combat trick in this spot. And TheSkeeJay could be a little bit liberal extending to the board because Pallid is also extended out as well. So Harsh Rule is kind of net neutral for the players here.
Yeah, Harshal is actually very much in the favor of TheSkeeJay, I would argue.
Yeah, he does have the Seraph left over. A lot of his creatures have drawn cards.
Yeah, ooh, this is nasty. I hope he puts this on. That was an okay choice. I would have liked to have seen it on Bird probably, but I don't think it's going to matter too much here. And TheSkeeJay just going to go ahead and drop this Seraph without being able to activate it. So if Pallid picks up a weapon here, he's going to get to clear this off, and there we go.
Well, he is insulated with the Decay.
Oh, yeah,
the Decay
of course.
makes it okay to do this.
Yeah, susceptible to harsh rule there, with that being his last threat on the board. But like we've already said, both players are very much overextended. So,
and there we see the combat trick Decay.
Yeah, 2 decays. So gonna clean this up here, and now this puts TheSkeeJay in a position where he actually can start pushing some damage. He's got the owl in air for a 4-turn clock.
Oh, when he hits Shimmer Pack.
Number of units. Oh my gosh, he's got Shimmer Pack off the top. Well, I'm almost positive that that's going to go ahead and clean this.
Yeah,
close this out.
And because of how Shimmer Pack interacts with Seraph, these are all becoming 8/8s, not 4/4s.
Yeah, this is which actually means he probably doesn't want to transform. I guess he wants to transform the Statuary Maiden anyway, probably. But yeah, if knowing that, he actually should have transformed more of the units. But that's okay. TheSkeeJay, forgetting the interaction between Seraph doubling the attack on them, should still be able to attack cleanly and just win this game here. Yeah, I think he's gonna.
I think he's free to alpha here. He has enough life on crack. Like the crackback is not remotely lethal. He has to block most of these. Actually, is this just lethal?
It very well may be. Let's take off the 5 highest.
I think.
If we take off the 5 highest units, like if he blocks everything here, then he can easily survive with 9. I think it is. Yeah, he'll or not 9 health, but he will only take 9 here at max, I think. Yeah, he's gonna choose take 10 to try and kill the Sandstorm Titan. This is that was a good Seraph hit. Yeah, that was certainly a very strong Seraph hit. That is almost assuredly going to do it. Yeah, and Pallid Mask not picking up Harsh Rule. Harsh Rule was his single out there, and not finding it, he is going to be very dead, unfortunately. So loses the series 2-1 to TheSkeeJay on that Voda combo deck. Yeah, I like TheSkeeJay's build. The protects paid dividends that whole time. He played the matchup very well. It's a deck that has a lot of room for innovation, just like most decks in Eternal. The increased deck size really gives you a lot of room to play around with stuff, so it's cool to see people's interpretations of decks like that. Yeah, it definitely is cool to see that. And Voda combo, while we didn't see the Vodacon come down itself, the deck still is built on the Comebrew base, which is very, very strong. Yeah, I think that you could just play essentially a big Combray deck and then have access to Vodacon Voice of the Speaker for the longer matchups, and then just have this overwhelming combo that can just close out games. Yep, absolutely true.